When we're ironing our fabrics or seams of a project, we just take said iron and drag it around, right? No, wrong. Instead, what we should be doing is pressing our fabric. Press down, pick up, move, and repeat. But why, Cornelius? I hear you thinking. Allow me to demonstrate. And I've got two identical pieces of fabric here. This first one here, I'm simply going to press. With this second one here, I'm going to do the old dragging technique. I then go ahead and overlay the ironed one on top of the pressed one. And if we look on this side here, Editing Corn, bring the camera in close. This top piece here is now, let's say 1/8 of an inch, give or take, longer than the one underneath. 3 millimeters for the metric folk. What's happening is that the heat from the iron is softening and relaxing the fibers in the yarn of the fabric. And then you combine that with the tension of pressing down and pulling with the iron, and that's causing it all to just stretch ever so slightly. And now 1/8 of an inch or 3 millimeters doesn't really seem like that much, but I'm working with a linen here, which requires the highest heat setting on the iron, and it's only a tiny piece. Now imagine working with something a little bit more delicate, perhaps, or a longer length, like a full pant or a skirt or something. Well, it all starts to add up, and suddenly you're going to be wondering, what went wrong? Why are my pattern pieces different sizes? Dragging your iron, that's why. But also, if you go ahead and sew this stretched fabric of yours, well, when you go to wash your finished garment, those fibers are just going to shrink right back to size. Yeah, that's going to be fitting a little more snug than desired. There's also a chance that these seams are going to have a little bit of that bubbling effect, which ain't desirable either. Those are pants that I made. Yes, I continue to make mistakes. I learned my lessons the hard way. So, yeah, in large part, this video is for me, to remind me to be better about this stuff. So, future Corn, pay attention. Up until this point, I've just been demonstrating with a woven fabric. It gets much worse with stretchy knit fabrics. Oh boy. My name is Cornelius Quiring. That's my logo. That's my word mark. And Cornelius.o is my website. When was the last time you changed the needle on your machine? Oh, you don't remember? That's right. Needles need to be changed regularly and often. Now, is there a hard and fast rule of exactly how much? No. When I was doing my research online for this, I found a great varying amount of numbers. Some people mentioned doing it as often as every 8 hours of sewing. Another person mentioned every 20 hours of sewing. Another person mentioned doing a week's worth of sewing. But the point being, somewhere in that range, I think it makes sense to swap out said needle. But why? Well, quite simply, wear and tear. The needle is going in and out of the fabric hundreds of times a minute. Multiply that by the hours of usage, and eventually you're going to start to see wear and tear. There's going to be little micro scratches on the tip of the needle. That's eventually going to lead to possible burrs. It's going to dull the end of the needle. And, well, actually, we found, and I mean Research Corn, found this picture of a needle that's been used for a few months. And you can see that that is no longer a good needle. And then while Editing Corn was putting this video together, Research Corn found an even better example where at first glance the tip seems fine, but zooming in a little bit with a microscope, you realize real quick, no bueno. And that's probably the best evidence I can have to make the case. Also, we aren't sewing over top our pins, right? Right? And before we go out and buy some more needles, it's important to know that they're not all created equal. There's two things we need to look for, the type of tip and the size of the needle. For the tip, the most common one is the universal needle, and this is your general all-purpose needle for everyday sewing, your woven fabrics, just about anything basic. But then you've also got your ballpoint needles, and these have more of a rounded tip on them, and they're used for knit fabrics. The idea being that with the ball tip, it's more likely to go around the yarn of the fabric rather than piercing through it, because with knit fabrics, if we pierce it and damage it, well, it's more likely to unravel and ruin our fabric. Ooh, I like the illustrations graphics, Corin. Let's show a whole variety of different options just to demonstrate how many different ones people can get. And the second thing to pay attention to is the size. And heavens forbid we use one standardized size for everything, but the thing to remember is basically the bigger the number, the heftier the fabric. Now, do we need a needle in every single size and configuration? Definitely not. I find that there's a little bit of overlap there. Like, I personally sew a lot of medium weight, and so I have mostly size 14 needles. And then the odd project where I go quite heavy, like a coat or maybe something a little bit lighter, I'll get one for each of those, but that's about it. And as for the tips, well, I find a universal and a ballpoint tend to cover just about all of my garment making. It's only once I get into the more unique fabrics that I'm going to consider other needles, like say leathers, pleathers, neoprenes. Oh, and pro tip, buy in bulk. It'll save you a few shillings, you know? Pro tip number 2, if you're really truly looking to master your sewing skills, I suggest Skillshare, the sponsor of this video. I'm constantly looking to expand my skill set beyond what's required just to make my own everyday clothes. And this past month, I've been watching a class about making a wedding dress. Fascinating. Freshly launched, by the way. Skillshare's constantly adding to their already vast library. Skillshare is by far the largest online learning community for creatives like you and I, with thousands of classes led by industry experts across topics like sewing, pattern drafting, embroidery, wedding dress making. So whether you're looking to improve your skills for your career or doing it for the love of the game as a hobbyist, Skillshare has got you covered. But back to that wedding dress class, it's 3.5 hours long and covers every detail. I need to meet a bride-to-be who's looking for a wedding dress to try out all these new skills that I'm learning. Oh, and the fabric shopping would be fun. All those delicate fabrics, gorgeous laces. Sorry, getting a little carried away here. First 500 people to sign up using my link down in the description will get a 1-month trial to Skillshare for free. That's right, an entire month of the entire platform for free. Just click the link down in the description. I imagine this is the scenario. You're countless hours deep into this project. It's getting quite late. You know you should be in bed because you got work tomorrow, but you're so close to being done. Stop. Put it away and do it tomorrow or the night after when you actually have time. This is definitely not a technical tip, but equally as important. Slow down. Take your time. Do it correctly and go back and fix your mistakes. Allow me to make the case. Fabric these days costs more money alone than buying a complete garment at the store. We need all our different tools, and then the most valuable resource of all, which is finite, is our time. And if the comments and messages I get are any indication, chances are most of us are doing this because we want clothes that feel right to us and fit the way we want. We haven't been able to find what we want at the stores. And so, in conclusion, we're doing this because we want to, not because we have to. Let's slow down, take our time to do everything right, fix those mistakes, and there's a good chance we end up loving this item rather than just liking it. And I found that the more effort I put into something, the more I end up appreciating it, you know? Future corn, if you're going to take anything from this video, make sure you fix those mistakes. That's awesome! You got a big old spool of thread for $5? Man, that's way cheaper than those dinky little ones for $10. Hook me up! Congratulations. You bought serger thread. Serger threads are typically a poly spun thread. The poly bit is easy to figure out. That's polyester. And the spun bit means that there's a whole bunch of little hair looking like things. The more official industry term being a staple. The same way the little hairs of cotton are known as a staple. So you take these staples and you twist them together into a long string, or more specifically, they're spun together into a long string. Hence, poly spun thread. And by the very nature of how it's made, it's just a more linty thread. In Plotich, we would say it has Maya Franzen, Maya Franzen on serger thread. This is a weaker thread, but it's okay for serging because, well, 3 to 4 threads, you know, many threads make light work. But it's also often used just to encase the raw edge of the fabric. And when it is used as an official stitch to hold the garment together, it's most often used with knit fabrics where they tend to have some sort of stretch, so less tension on the actual stitch itself. Script writing corn. Is this the part where I tell folks about our pattern drafting sewing classes? Nope. Oh, oops. And apparently not. No. Okay. Well, then I can't tell you to go to that URL either to check them out. Now, your all-purpose sewing thread, the stuff that's more expensive, well, that is usually a poly core spun thread. This stuff has one long continuous band, string, I'm not quite sure what to call it. Think of it like a fishing line. The core is a fishing line, and then around the outside is a sheath of polyester staples. And it's that core that gives it its strength. Now, you can buy this all-purpose stuff in the big spools as well, but it's going to cost you. Oh, and there is no shortage of options when it comes to what kind of thread you can get. Polyester, poly-cotton blends, cotton, linen, you name it. I'm not even going to get into sizing because there's a whole bunch of different systems. It's different if you're a quilter than a sewer. Netflix, HBO, I bet I could make a compelling documentary just on thread. Let's get a budget together. Oh, filming corn. For this 5th and final mistake to avoid, let's do a quick fire round of various different mistakes to avoid. Avoid the temptation to rearrange pattern pieces to be more economical with the fabric. If pattern pieces aren't properly aligned with the grain of the fabric, well, over time, with it being washed and worn, it's gonna start twisting, and well, garments like this sure aren't fun to wear, now are they? No, they're not. If you need to use interfacing, try to avoid the cheap stuff. I specifically mean the fiber interfacing. It feels like paper. And if you use the version that has glue on the back, fusible interfacing, I find that it can bubble over time. Like you see it sometimes on the collars of shirts or cuffs. And frankly, it's just a case of 2 very different materials together over time that don't hold up. If it's exposed, like in these pants that I made many years ago, all that washing over time will really do a number on it. It doesn't look great. I personally suggest getting the woven stuff, and yes, it is more money, but I think it's worth it because it too is a fabric and just ends up playing nicer with the garments that I'm making. Do not pull on your fabric while you're sewing. When there's a bit of stretch in the fabric, or maybe we're sewing at an angle, it feels like the one underneath is going through faster than the one at the top, and there's a temptation to pull on that one underneath to keep it equal. I suggest getting a walking foot. What this thing does is it replicates the feed dog underneath that pull the fabric along and replicates it on top. So we're getting a 2-for-1 sort of deal rather than just this, you know? And now I pass the speaking scissors to you. Do share. What are some other common mistakes that we all make that could really help us improve our sewing craft? Chances are you might be interested in becoming a member of the Corn Cob Club. Not only could you get your name here, but you get sweet, juicy discounts on my courses. There's exclusive content and a sewing group chat where we are currently running an informal pant making club, the working title of which is the Trouser Troops Troop. However, to find out what that means, you're going to have to sign up.